Hi, everyone. This is Mandy. I'm your host of the Gig Podcast. Welcome. And here with me is my friend Matt. And
Hello.
Matt, why don't you introduce yourself and tell our audience a little bit about yourself?
Well, my name is Matthew Cardenas. I currently residing in Merced, California, 51 years old. Not saying I'm an old man, but I'm currently retired from Save Mart for 26 years. I'm working at UPS part-time. Um, I'm a single father of four beautiful children, 25, 23, 20, and my youngest being 14. So,
Nice. Well, and Matt and I went to the same high school, and we just got reconnected through a mutual friend of ours. And in our conversation, I learned about a diagnosis that Matt has. And why don't you go ahead and tell us about that?
um, well, I'm currently being treated for uh, biliary carcinoma, stage four cancer. Um, I got diagnosed back in February, started treatment at the end of March, early April, doing chemo. And I just about finishing up my first round, going into my second round. And, you know, despite being stage four, I'm still pretty active. I'm still, relatively healthy. Just because you have stage four doesn't necessarily mean that's the end. It means that it's spread in other areas that maybe aren't exactly good, but at the same time, I'm pretty upbeat and positive about treatment. Treatment's going well. My tumors have been shrinking, which is good. And so that's where we're at.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
And you have stayed pretty positive through the whole thing. And I really like that, and we've had some really good conversations, some very real conversations.
yeah.
And I'm grateful for that. And I know that there's definitely the highs and the lows. So what's kind of been your mindset going through this? Because obviously getting a diagnosis like that is pretty tough. But then like going through it, what's been your thought process? What have you been feeling?
Well, you know, I I tell the I've told the story, about how things led up to my diagnosis. It was a simple, just what I thought was just a gallstone, issue, and it was. Um, my gallbladder was acting up on me, and I led a few weeks of just painful, eating, and then, having this pain on my side, and I knew something was up because I know many people who've had, gallstones, and I went into my doctor and I told him what was going on, and he sent me in for ultrasound, and sure enough, it came back. I have a stone in my gallbladder. So he sent me to a surgeon to talk to him about, the surgery. And then that's when the surgeon informed me that there was another issue going on that was a lot more important than the gallstone. That I had lesions on my liver, and me being like not really educated on the lesions, I'm thinking, okay, well, what is lesions? What is that?
Yeah.
And he told me, you have tumors on your liver they look serious, that you might want to follow up with your doctor and find out what's going on. And then that's when I went into my doctor, and he referred me to another surgeon that scheduled me for an appointment.
Okay.
And the doctor told me that it's a gastro doctor, told me that don't worry about it. Usually it's just fatty areas on your liver that aren't really tumors, or anything of you know just be rest assured, don't stress over it, just kind of, but then once he went in and took out my gallbladder, he realized it looked serious. So he biopsied my liver at the time, and the biopsy came back that the side, I think it was the left side, that was cancerous.
Yeah.
And and then that's how I found out that I had cancer in my liver.
Okay.
So I got referred to an oncologist who um, wanted to get what's called a PET scan done right away to see if it metastasized anywhere else.
Mhm.
And if it didn't metastasize, and they were going to send me to Stanford, have surgery on my liver, cut the cancerous parts out, um, maybe a round or two of chemo, maybe some, radiation, and I would have a high rate of remission. And
Yeah.
but the PET scan did reveal that it was in my pancreas too. So that immediately put the surgery on hold, and then that put me at what's called stage 4.
Yeah.
And yeah,
And they classified it as stage 4 pancreatic cancer at this point.
yeah. So Stanford was, it originated in my pancreas. UC Davis, who I was being seen by, said no, it originated in your bile duct
Yeah.
and spread to other areas. Excuse me. And so they were kind of at the odds of, where it started, but nonetheless, it never changed the fact that I did have pancreatic cancer and liver cancer. Surprisingly, I didn't have it in my bile ducts, which,
Right.
yeah, I mean that report came back, it wasn't cancerous.
Gotcha. Okay.
So yeah, that's how.
So that's kind of how you found out.
Yeah, and the crazy thing is, I had gotten sick with the stomach bug one day at UPS. It was spreading around the whole facility, and I just happened to catch it too, and I got sick. The whole
The whole
miserable.
everything.
Your stomach, you know.
Yeah.
And then I recovered from that. Only a few days later, after that, I caught a fever, and I was sick, and I was like, "Wow, this is like back to back." And I went to urgent care, got tested for influenza. I was positive for influenza A, which took 2 weeks, over 2 weeks to recover from.
Oh,
And I had
geez.
never, I've never, it's never taken me that long. I've always been healthy and just to recover from. But it took a while to recover from that. And then right after that is when my gallbladder went out. So it was like a series of just like getting sick. And it was
Oh,
weird,
geez.
because up to that point, I was always really relatively healthy.
Yeah.
And I couldn't wrap my head around it. Like, and then to hear that I have cancer, kind of, maybe that was, the part where it was slowing, my recovery time and everything. But
Yeah.
um, so I'm currently on disability during treatment. Um, I'm just finishing up my first round and about ready to go into my second round of chemo. And Tuesday I have a very important PET scan, which if anybody's ever had cancer before, and is going through chemo, you have these PET scans to kind of see, well, the original diagnosis to make sure it is in that area or if it spread somewhere else.
Yeah.
That's the first one. The second one was in the middle of treatment to make sure that it hasn't spread anywhere else and that the tumors are shrinking, that the chemo is doing its job, which on my second PET scan really came back positive.
Yeah.
My tumors were shrinking significantly, which is a miracle on its own because anytime you could see that reduction of the tumors is very positive, meaning the chemo was doing its job. This one is at the end of my round,
Okay.
and this one is going to really determine, okay, are we still making progress? Are we not making progress? Did it spread somewhere else? So that's where I'm at right now. So this coming Tuesday, I have the scan. The doctor is going to expedite it, quickly to get the results. And then on Wednesday, I'm going to have that reading. So prayers,
Yeah.
prayer warriors out there.
Absolutely. And so so we've talked about this, but like if you want to share kind of what your mindset is going into this next PET scan and the results of that. And I know it's kind of hard.
It is because it's you're nervous. I can't sit there and say I'm not. I mean, I'm holding it together somewhat, but I'm nervous.
Yeah.
Because I've made such progress at I'm scared to see that it's not working anymore, or it's spread somewhere else. And but I'm very optimistic that it's still doing its job. Like I said, I still feel relatively healthy, and I'm still pretty active.
Yeah.
And but usually, and I've had two done already, that the 24 hours leading to the actual reading, um, it's pretty nerve-wracking. It's pretty it's tough.
Yeah.
So
Like holding your breath.
yeah, holding your breath, maybe not getting much sleep, you're just a hypochondriac about,
Yeah.
um, but I think this one is going to be a little different because I've already been through this.
Yeah.
I know that it's really in God's hands, that it's out of my hands. I don't question that. I pray that, I always just, Lord, just give me the strength to get through this night, to get to this point, and just kind of understanding that, you know, that it's really out of my hands,
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
just really give me the strength to just get to that point, and then whatever the outcome is, you know, because unfortunately, my mindset, and I don't know what it is, it's just something with me that I've always thought of the worst. So I prepare myself for the worst. And then when it is good news, I'm just like, oh, okay, all right. Whew. But, this one is really big because I put in so much work to just get to this point to where, and chemo is tough. And I've talked to you about it before, that it's rough.
Yeah.
And to think that I've taken a step back instead of taking more steps forward would make it just very discouraging. But I'm not staying in that lane.
No.
I'm staying in the positive side of it. And we're just going to take it from there, Mandy,
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely. And we do believe, you've already gotten one scan back that showed that they were shrinking. And
yeah.
we're just going to continue to believe that they're gone. And God is bigger than all of it. And he can show up in mighty ways in
Yeah.
a split second.
And the crazy thing is when the doctor came in on my second one, he came in and he was sweaty. I mean, you could tell he was having a long day. It was the end of the day that I had my reading.
Yeah.
And he came in and I was just like, oh my gosh.
Like, oh no. Oh no.
And he came in and he was almost in tears.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, what's going on, doctor? And he said, Matt, he goes, the kind of day I had, I've given two people just bad news.
Yeah.
And then I get to your reading and I read that your tumors have shrunk significantly.
And we're just going to continue.
I broke down and I started crying because just the mere passion behind what he was saying, and how he felt so encouraged, because originally it was going to be tough to treat mine.
Yeah.
And it was going to take a lot of just, I'm not going to say miracle, but it was going to take a lot to just get everything together, to almost like that village, it takes a village to just pull through.
It does.
And it was. And for him to give me the news that he gave me, it was not only just uplifting for me, but to see the just the mere excitement on his end, because this is a man that I've become very close with.
Yeah.
My oncologists and me are very, very close.
I mean, you're trusting him with your life, in essence.
You are, but
Yeah.
Anybody who's ever been to an oncologist knows that, for the most part, they don't sugarcoat anything because they don't have to. You're in serious trouble with cancer, and
Right.
and you know, they're going to treat it if that's what you want to do. And if that's what they suggest and that's what you want to have done, and you go through it and knowing that it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. And so the middle of my treatment, knowing that the chemo and the work, and when I mean the work, it's not just the work that I put into because I'm just the patient. I'm the one that's getting the medication, but it's the nurses, it's the staff, it's the doctor that really, and the doctor at the last minute was on his way back from, I think, India, and he was doing a research on one of my chemo drugs that treated pancreatic cancer and showed significant signs of it responding well to the treatment, to the chemo, that at the last minute, he switched one of my drugs up and went with this drug at the very last minute. Because I got into my first appointment and I had to delay. And they're like, well, we can't treat you right now. I'm like, well, why not? And they're like, well, we have to get insurance approval. I go, well, everything was approved before. And they were reading through the notes. And the nurse told me, no, the doctor switched up one of your drugs. So we're waiting on that approval. And I'm like, okay. And I was looking at my fiance at the time. And we're just kind of puzzled, like, okay, what's going on? And then that's when I found out that he had switched one of my drugs up, and which is not the cure, but what it is, it added time, potential time, onto what they call my lifespan. Because the doctors are going to give you that initial, hey, it may not save your life, but it may extend your life. And that's really, at that point, I realized that I want that extension of my life. I'm not so much fixated on the cure, but to give me time is really all I was asking. So when I got that PET scan that second time, knowing that my tumors were shrinking really was encouraging.
That definitely is.
Really, yeah, it was.
I think that's one of the biggest things is kind of you realize, I mean, we always say it, like time is very valuable and time is the most expensive thing you're ever going to spend.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you get kind of a shortened time span, it puts things into perspective. Big time.
You don't really appreciate time until they tell you don't have much time, because I've explained to people before that, we look at, you're so fixated on just the normal life of just, getting up, having your coffee, getting ready for work, getting ready for school, doing whatever, going about your day, coming home, doing your normal things at home. And just that's how you're living life. But you're not really living it because you're not appreciating the value of what life is. Well, this has given me a whole different perspective because I was one of those that really took life for granted. I just went through the norm. I was always healthy, relatively healthy. I was always, workaholic. I felt like I was at the top of my game, and then to get a diagnosis like that, and then them to mention that, that, you're potentially going to, check out a lot earlier than you thought. It really makes you put, life and time into more of a focus point for you, and you learn how to like appreciate, just going outside and looking around and, looking at the sky, looking at the trees, looking at just everything going on. It's, you just start appreciating things more, time spent with the family, not knowing that, this could be the last time you see them. This may be the last holiday that you see them. So cherish that, value that, because that's in essence how I started living my life is, potentially getting cut shorter than what I had thought. I thought I'm going to live to be, 70. If I got this diagnosis when I'm in my 70s, so be it, oh well. I'm 51 years old and I'm not ready to go, so yeah.
I definitely got to see you live like you were dying this weekend. It was good. It was good just to be out there at the beach and sunset, watching the sunsets and riding four-wheelers. And
I mean, I haven't been to Pismo in 30 years.
Right.
My sister lived in Pismo, went to school there at Pismo, at Cuesta College. And, I used to make trips back and forth from Oakhurst to Pismo and bring her stuff. And, but this time around, I hit Pismo Beach and, just really soaked it all in, and going there brought back memories of, going there for my sister to drop off a dresser, drop off a mattress for the roommates, or just to go hang out.
Yeah.
And, it was cool. And then hanging out with you guys, you guys were fun. We rode the quads, we hung out on the beach, we went, had fish and chips and clam chowder. We had a good time.
Had a bonfire.
Had a bonfire.
Yeah. And just got to enjoy time.
Yeah.
And that was so good. There was no expectation.
Remember, people, time. Enjoy it.
Enjoy it.
Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
And live it. And that's what we were doing when we were living.
Absolutely. It was good. It was good. That's good stuff. All right. Well, any last words for our viewers?
Just don't wait for a diagnosis like I got, to start living. Just start appreciating life, start appreciating, time, spending time with loved ones, learning how to forgive, learning how to, petty things that maybe, that you hold inside, let it go, let things just be, and just, know that, life is not a guarantee. It's not a certainty. And just appreciate the value of, loved ones, and learning to love that, like we talked before, loving yourself, and enjoying, everything that life brings, because things aren't perfect. Like I said, I was on top of
your game,
and then boom, with a drop of,
the rug just
kind of like gets pulled right from you, and you're just like, oh,
you're like, well, crap.
So.
Yeah, definitely. And I've seen it, you in amazing spirits, and I know there's definitely moments that things are heavy, but I think that plays a lot into it. It's just staying positive.
Positivity is key. Yeah. And I can't say that I've always been positive about this, because I have, I've been very, very depressed at times, and, just, I've learned to just not stay in that lane.
Yeah.
I've learned that, being down on myself, or, pity myself is not the route I want to go.
Right.
And, just, learn to get yourself out of that, and don't think that won't hit you, or, and it's okay. It's okay to be there, but it's not okay to stay in that lane.
Yeah.
And to, just find yourself an avenue to where you are going to be positive, and try and just learn from that. And what you're going to learn from that is, keep yourself busy, keep yourself, not to be isolated and thinking about stuff like that, because as much as I've wanted to just tuck away, and feel sorry for myself, I can't do that.
No.
I can't. And then, build your strength through the Lord, and learn to, understand that you're not doing this alone.
Exactly.
And, I haven't been sometimes the most faithful, godly person, but what it definitely did is it allowed me to just say, hey, Lord, help me.
Absolutely.
Guide me.
Absolutely.
And that's where we're at.
It is. Well, thank you for coming on and sharing your story. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Oh, go Niners, by the way.
Go Niners. All right, guys. Have a great day. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time.
Bye, guys.
All right. And I spoke sweeter, and I watched an eagle as it was flying. And he said, someday I hope you get the chance to live like you were dying.